Bear with me just while I get myself sorted out. Good morning. Good morning, one and all. I see Dan Cullen's already arrived. Trying to make sure my Twitch stream is running as it should. I think it is. It is. I can see myself. I was going to say I can see myself loud and clear. Obviously, that's not true because you can't see yourself loud and clear. But yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take that music away in just a second. But I'm going to say very good morning to Gary Muirhead. Morning, Gary. Happy Saturday to you. That's way too much music for a Saturday morning. How are we all doing? I've got an idea. Got an idea I'd like to run past you. I was going to do this a little bit later when we've got excuse me. We've got a few more people in the chat, but I'll do it now and then I'll probably repeat it. And like most things, I'm a bit late to the party on this one, but I've had an idea. Thank you very much indeed, Gary. It's an old corduroy shirt. It was just the one that was ironed, to be perfectly honest, but thank you very much. And, the whacker hat's come back out again. But yes, looking very sharp this morning. It won't last. So, obviously, the European Championships have been going on. I'm not going to bore you with details of football. But one thing that struck me about this is the way that the table works is, everybody plays everybody else, and you gradually go from, 36 teams to 18 teams to 9 teams to, and you end up with a final like we've got tomorrow between England and Spain. So I've been thinking, I've been slightly conscious of the fact that the question of the day has, I wouldn't say it's become stale. That's certainly not the case, but I think we could do with a break from the question of the day on our regular show. So my plan basically is to take that away. Just probably for the summer period, and then to have, first and foremost, I think the easiest one to start with is the Excavator World Championships. Okay, so the idea is, I need to make a bit more of an effort in future shows, I think. Thank you very much indeed, Dan. Yeah, so the idea is we will do a draw. I'm going to get myself some balls. Insert your own joke there. I'm going to get myself some balls, put some numbers on them. And those numbers will relate to a specific excavator manufacturer. So Caterpillar, Liebherr, Volvo, Hitachi, all of those. We'll draw them out, and that will dictate who plays who in round one. And then the winners of round one go forward to round two. And then the winners of that go forward to round three. And we end up with a grand final. No, Gary, in actual fact, I thought it would give you an opportunity partly to take a break. Because you are going on holiday fairly soon. But also, I think I've got to the point now with the question of the day where even the questions that I know for a fact I'm asking for the first time kind of feel like we've been there before. And I just think if we could just take maybe best part of a month off. I mean, I've been trying to think off the top of my head, I could probably come up with 30 odd excavator manufacturers, full-size excavator manufacturers. So if they all play each other, even if we did it every day, that's about 3 and a bit weeks, I would guess, to whittle that down to the final. So that would effectively a month. So, maybe for the month of August, we will hold the Excavator World Championships, and we'll see how that plans out. And, depends exactly how that pans out and what sort of engagement we get on it. And if it goes well, then we'll do it again. And possibly we will be doing, I don't know, mini excavators, because there's lots of those as well. I'm going to say good morning to Ken Hadger. David Jones, good morning, David Jones. Does ball size matter? I'm not the best judge. No, in actual fact, I looked very quickly this morning. I was planning to go and buy myself a bunch of ping pong balls, drop them into a hat or a bag or something like that, and do the live draw. And I will do the draw live because I want everybody to see that it's kosher and above board. But my wife has suggested, actually, these children's ball pits? They do these little plastic balls where they're quite big, which means I'm going to need a bigger bag or a bigger hat or something like that. But that's not a problem. I could do that, and you'll be able to see exactly what it is. Good morning to Toby Comley, who's just joined us over on Instagram. Haven't seen Toby in ages, but good morning to you, sir. And Julie Banks is here as well. Morning, Julie. So, yes, that would be the idea. Get lots of those, whittle it down, and then we will decide. Exactly who I say we, I've got the rules in mind. You will decide who you believe would be the ultimate world champion in the field of excavators. And just to fill you in while people are still arriving, I've got a couple of things in mind. So first and foremost is the way I'm going to do this is to make you imagine that you've got, let's say, 100,000 quid to spend. Somebody's giving you 100,000 quid to spend, but you have to choose between two brands of excavators with which to spend that money. Now, some of you might look at that and think, "Oh, well, actually, I'll go top notch. I'll definitely go for Liebherr or Volvo, and I'll get a premium brand." Some of you might look at it and think, "Actually, I'd rather get a bigger bang for my buck." So maybe you'll go for a Chinese or a Korean or something like that. But that's the idea. That's the idea. Gradually whittle it down, whittle it down, whittle it down, and then once we're done, we will crown the world champion, and we will do that on a daily basis. No, Gary, you're just getting a break. Yeah, absolutely. Dan Carr also says, depending what's behind the balls, I'd rather not go there. I think you're 100% correct. A break would be a good idea. We'll come back fighting with some amazing questions of the day. Yeah, I to be perfectly honest, as I say, it's just I've had no complaints. Everybody seems to like the question of the day, but I just thought, ring the changes a bit. You've got to keep pushing forward, haven't you? So yeah, that is basically the idea. Jim Turner, morning peeps. Jesus, I nearly forgot we were on today. How very dare you? Why not do it live in a kids' ball pit? I I could. I'd lose the balls that I was using to select these things from, and I do need to reuse them if we're going to carry on and do mini excavators and possibly dozers and wheel loaders and stuff like that. Let's have a look. Ken Hatcher says, "Cat JCB, thumbs up." See, I think it kind of depends how the draw works. It's all very well sitting here saying, who your favorite brands are, but what if, for example, Cat and JCB is in the semi-final? What if they're drawn together in the first round? Who do you go for? And again, the rules, the rules, such as they are, will be, you've got an imaginary 100 grand to spend on an excavator. Which one are you going to choose? And obviously, there could potentially be a tie, and if there is a tie, it will go to penalties. And I take the penalties. So I will either toss a coin, spin a wheel, or I don't know, come up with my own answer, and that will be definitive. So we will end up going from, I don't know, off the top of my head, 30 teams down to 15 down, and we'll end up with one. What about crushers, telehandlers, and demolition machines? We could do anything, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I think the only thing with and the one that struck me, I mean, I'd love to do one on dozers. But I can only think of half a dozen people that make, proper dozers. So yeah, in a ball pit with some bikini-clad women, you could throw in some jelly. I think you're kind of missing the point of. I mean, I've got to be honest. I prefer your idea to my idea, but I think that's kind of going away from the original idea. Not that I'm complaining. If we could find, yeah, I'm sure we could come up with enough jelly. Loading shovels, yeah, we could. Listen, I think we could do any brands whatsoever, and some of them. I mean, maybe we'll be able to do, I don't know, dozers or telehandlers. Do them in a week and a bit, something like that. But just put it down to the public vote and see what people come up with, and see, because I do think there's lots and lots of ways to look at this. I mean, if I was starting my own business where I was going to be an owner operator, the temptation would be to go and buy, I don't know, a Liebherr or a Volvo, go top notch, because you know exactly what you're getting. But then there's the flip side of that. Could I go and buy an XCMG or a Lugong or something like that and actually get more for my buck? It's an interesting take. It really is. David Jones says, first rule of risk management: when you've got a lot of balls in the air and likely to drop some, always try to keep your mind on the ones you're attached to. I will definitely be keeping that in mind. What about Demolition doing the draw? Well, okay, so what I may do, I may actually bring back Demolition for this very thing. So the draw, one of my grandchildren has actually got one of those bingo balls where you but I don't think they've got all the balls, so I'm going to do away with that. So I will come up with a bag with whatever it is, 30 balls in it, and I'll do a live draw. We'll allocate it. We'll do a proper league table, and we'll gradually whittle it down. And I think when we're doing the actual show itself, maybe Debbie can introduce it. Maybe Debbie can introduce it. Bring back Reg. Ah, poor Reg. Yes, we knew him and we loved him well, but sadly, Reg is now some baked bean cans. It's like he's real, isn't it? What about attachments to be added to your purchase? Well, therein lies another issue. The problem, I think, with attachments is, can you possibly compare a hydraulic breaker with a shear, with a bucket, with a processor, with a grab? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure you can. Not entirely sure you can. But as I say, that's the idea that we're cooking with at the moment. I'll keep you posted on exactly what it is we end up doing. Where are we exactly today? My phone is in my pocket. I think we're about well, no, not quite halfway through. So my plan probably is to do this for 13th of July. Possibly start this at the end of July, beginning of August. Obviously, we've already got our own Mystery Machine League table running, which is going very, very well indeed. But yeah, to do something with this. And I just wonder if the excavator manufacturers, if I announce that, Kobelco and Komatsu are going head to head the day that we're actually doing it, maybe they might actually get involved and take note and what have you. We shall see. We shall see. Going to have a slurp of tea and I'll be back with you in a sec. I'm trying to do this away from the microphone so you don't have to listen to me gulping. Jim Turner says, sod that, go order and recondition, then buy another couple of identical machines and have them all out to work. Then if one goes kaput permanently, you've a machine to cannibalize to keep the others going. So one of the other things that occurred to me was to actually good question, Gary. I'll come to you in a sec. One of the ideas I had was actually to include the likes of Hymac and Priestman. So some old school. So let's be absolutely honest. As much as we all love the old kit, it couldn't hold a candle to any of the modern machines. We all know that in terms of productivity, comfort, emissions, and everything else. But there is a great deal of sentimentality out there. So if we ended up with a contest between, let's say, Hymac and Senebogen. I don't know why they just came to mind, but Hymac versus Senebogen. Now, personally, love me a Senebogen, but there's a little bit of me, a little bit of my heart still dedicated to Hymac. Which way would you go? That'd be an interesting one. And Gary says, will you be using VAR? I am VAR. I won't be voting. I will not be taking part in the actual vote itself, but I will be the ultimate arbiter. So should we end up with fights on the terraces, it will be me that will quell the riot and bring things back to normal. So that's the plan anyway. Looks like we've got people on board. So we'll be doing a bit of that. No agenda today, as you well know. That's not the way Saturdays work. But I mentioned at the top of yesterday's show this notion of a lady called. Oh, hang on a minute. Let me just address this. False. I'm sure he shouted this into the machine. A Dash 5 Hitachi digs and tracks better than a Dash 7. For why? Why does it do that? I thought progress was forever improving. Constant improvement? Apparently not. Why is that? I'd love to know. And is there any other examples of that? I'd love to get your take on that. Yeah, I mentioned yesterday an article by an occupational nurse called Nicola Elvey, who was talking about basically drinking in moderation if you are going to be watching the England-Spain match tomorrow night. And a few companies got in touch as a result. Very popular post, actually. A couple of companies got involved and said, we're giving all our lads Monday off. And there's a bit of me that thinks, that's awfully decent of them, because it is a big deal as far as England football fans are concerned. And there's the other bit was thinking it's probably to save their insurance, and lots of phone calls early on Monday morning to say, I've suddenly come down with alcohol-induced COVID or something. So I understand all of that. But that's one day, and I realise it is a cultural highlight, but it is one day out of 365. What about the rest? What about the rest? What about every other Monday morning? What about every Saturday morning where people have been out on the lash on a Friday? We're making a special dispensation, and I understand and I appreciate companies doing that. But what about the rest of the time? You know, if you are going to put your pen to paper to say we're going to give full pay to all our staff on a Monday, even though they're not going to turn up because they're all going to be hungover, win, lose, or draw. Draw isn't an option, but win or lose, we're going to do that. What about the rest of the time? Now, I'm not for one moment suggesting that any employer should be giving people every Monday off just because they've been out on the lash. That's not their problem. But what about the rest of the time? Surely that just plays up the whole idea of drugs and alcohol testing. If we are that aware of the habits, the weekend habits of our staff, would it not be a better idea to just say, that's what we're going to do from here on in? We are going to be doing compulsory drugs and alcohol testing. And here's another point as well. Bearing in mind how alcohol stays in your system and everything else, could you not just do it on a Monday morning? Because let's face it, most people that are going to overindulge are likely to do the overindulging on a Saturday or a Friday or a Saturday. Certainly, if it is down to drugs, that will still be in your system come Monday morning. Maybe that's an idea. Anybody got any thoughts? Chris Forge just joined us. Good morning, Trips. Crush your duty this morning. I hope you can still hear me over the din. What be really interesting is the difference in price between the same machine in the UK. If Jim Turner was to get a price for a JCB X140 from his local dealer, and I did the same with Scott JCB, see the difference. There will be difference. That, to be perfectly honest, I mean that is. It's one of the many reasons that we never bother asking for prices, because well, they vary from place to place, both in the UK but also beyond. So if you're buying, let's use your JCB 140X as an example. If you buy one here in the UK, it'll be a different price if you buy it in France, Germany, Spain, Italy, or whatever it might be. So you've got that. You've also got dealer discounts. You've also got other factors that come into it. Maybe you're a long-term customer, and maybe you've got a bigger stick to beat your dealer with. So we just never bother asking for sometimes they give us ballpark figures, but the ballpark figures are largely meaningless. But it is a good point. Many moons ago, I was approached by a Portuguese company, actually. Funnily enough, it was JCB. There was a Portuguese company who had grown weary of the price that the local dealer was charging for certain parts. So he basically, because I'd met him at an event, he basically phoned me up and said, what is the price of parts in the UK? And I had a look into it, and he could get even allowing for shipping after they've been bought here, he was getting a discount. So it does make a difference. Dan Cullen says, I found a Firmac a lot more comfortable on the road, less bouncy than the older 3CX. Yeah, see, there's another area that we could do a head-to-head with backhoe loaders. There's plenty of those about the place over the years, so we could certainly do that. Be an interesting take, I think. Oh, excuse me. So yes, drugs and alcohol. I know we keep coming back to that. And I had another thought as well, and this was inspired again by Nicola Elvey, just because we were chatting basically. We were talking about health, because kind of that's what you do with a nurse. And we got onto the subject of mental health. Now, obviously, mental health is something that we cover on the regular show on a regular basis. Talk about it a lot. Obviously, we've got various charities now set up to look after it. Some of the trade bodies have jumped on board. Morning, Mark Whiting. Some of the not manufacturers, some of the contractors now have mental health first aiders. So there's been a real push on it. Now, I'm not bearing in mind the suicide figures that we had recently. It would suggest that they're not making a huge impact. But something occurred to me while I was talking to Nicola, and that was, we now have a very, very public focus upon mental health. What about physical health? Now, I've known Nicola for 20 plus years. I would have thought. And when I first started speaking to her, she was, and she still does. I mean, this is what she does for a living. She goes around sites from site to site to site, and sits down with the lads on site, and she checks their overall health. She does do drugs and alcohol testing, but by and large, her real remit is checking health to make sure that people are fit for work. You've all had your medicals, you know exactly how this works. But I remember her telling me that she'd been to a site and, had picked up the fact that a guy had the early signs of heart disease, which he was completely unaware of. And when she actually started to do a bit of a dig into his background, he was one, like many of you guys, I'm sure, like many of you, he was away a lot, so he didn't get to see his GP, didn't get to see his heart specialist, didn't get to see his dentist, and as a result, his health had gradually, over a period of years, had deteriorated. Combine that with the fact that he's staying away, so he's not eating particularly healthy. He's eating burgers on the road. He's smoking too many cigarettes, and he's out on the lash at night. I mean, even if he's only drinking 3 or 4 pints a night, that's still over the odds, and so on down the line. So, what is that? First and foremost, what is that doing to the physical health of people? And why? I understand why. I realise it's the latest bandwagon for people to jump on, and I understand that the focus on mental health, and I do realise that nearly 700 suicides in a single year is an absolute disgrace. But what about the others? What about those that are dying from diabetes, lung disease, heart disease, liver disease, kidney disease, asbestos-related diseases? Now, I know the asbestos ones are recorded because it is a kind of an industrial accident. That's not the right word, but that's where they see it. But all those people that are contracting things like heart disease, lung disease, and that kind of thing, not asbestos lung disease, but too many cigarettes and what have you. Are we recording those? My guess is we're probably not. And it goes back to something I've said before about when in relation to mental health. When we talk about mental health, we always seem to want to close the door after the horse has bolted. So rather than actually changing working practices to make sure that people aren't overly stressed, they're not worried about where the next pay packet is coming from, and all of those kind of things. We're not doing that. We're just putting a sticking plaster on it and hoping that the stress will just go away and so on down the line. We're doing exactly the same thing with physical health. We are. Well, I mean, I'm going to say good morning to Tristan Mace, who says, "Morning, Mark. That's a cheery subject for a Saturday morning. You are, as usual, 100% correct, though. Thank you very much indeed, Tris. Good to see you, my friend. I hope you're fitting well." So, and I think about it. Well, in actual fact, don't even think about it because Gary's doing it for me. It must be a big contributor to obesity in our industry. Just sit on your arse all day in the cab, not getting enough exercise. So think about that. Think about that for a second. I mean, I've got an Apple Watch, and my Apple Watch tells me roughly every hour, get up, go and walk around. And sometimes I listen, sometimes I'm doing this or I'm driving. That's one of the things I never understand about the Apple Watch. It seems to know everything about me, but it can't tell when I'm driving. But you think about that, okay? So you think about the way that you guys are required to live your life. Up early, whether you're working locally or whether you're working away. Up early, so you're probably grabbing something to eat on the run. You get to site, maybe you have a break, mid-morning. So what is it? Probably white bread sandwiches, bar of chocolate, packet of crisps or something like that. Lunchtime rolls around. If you're lucky, you might have a decent cafe up the road, bacon roll, full English, whatever it might be. And then you're making your way home. It's too late to expect the missus to cook, so you stop in for a burger. What's that doing for your health? Plus, as Gary has just said, when I bring it back up again, you are basically sat down. Is your boss going to be particularly happy if you jump out the machine and say, my watch has just told me I need to go for a stroll? He's telling you, well, you can forget that. Get in the cab and get on with your job. Is that good? And bearing in mind, so I was about to say in offices, back when I worked in an office, a proper office rather than a back bedroom, when I was working in an office, we were actually given some of these chairs where they don't have a back. So you're basically kneeling. And supposedly it was good for your posture and everything else. And I have to say, I had one. I must have had one for about 2 years. And when it first arrived, it didn't feel right. I was very concerned. I used to wear a suit to work. I was very concerned about the fact that it was, wearing the knees of my very posh suits and stuff like that. But that's all an aside. But I have to say, after a couple of months, it felt so comfortable. You think about all of the effort that the equipment manufacturers have put into making your seat supportive and warm or cool, and all of those sort of things. But that's all you're doing. You're just sat there. Your longest walk of the day might well be from your car to your machine. And on a lot of occasions, rather than your 10,000 steps a day, you might be doing 40. What is that doing to your general health? That's what I say. We're going back a bit. Jim Turner says, Gary, I'd either be going second-hand Itachi or Newsun or Takuchi Lugong. Probably get a tidy Itachi, send it in for some love, then just stick with it. Then take the money a brand new machine would cost of me and buy different items of plant. Therefore, many more earning potential. If they were all out earning, instead of having one brilliant machine, only ever being able to earn 1 week's money at a time. It's an interesting take. An interesting take. Dan Collins says, many people not bothered wearing earmuffs or face masks. The earmuffs, face masks, and I know somebody mentioned silica dust in a second. Where is that? I'm sure I saw a mention of silica dust. There you are. Silica dust. Lots of guys inhaling that daily. Obviously, we do have regulations and rules and stuff about masks, and I couldn't wear a mask without losing the beard because it wouldn't be airtight and stuff. I'm well aware of all of that. But earmuffs and the other one as well. My wife has actually got Raynaud's syndrome. One of her fingers goes completely numb. It goes completely white and completely numb. Insert your own jokes about it being caused by vibration. I don't even want to begin with that. But lots of guys that are using hand tools end up with vibration white finger and Raynaud's disease and stuff like that. We have the ability to log all of those, but are we? And even if we're logging them, should we be doing it? I mean, for example, one of these, big. I'm not blaming Hilti here, but one of these big handheld Hilti hammer drills. You can actually put that in a mount. And you just basically press the button, and there's something else basically taking the weight and taking the vibration. Why would you not? Why would you not? Let's have a look. David Jones says the London Health and Safety Group meets regularly in the city with great speakers. Did a great session last year on workplace drug and alcohol testing and control. Worth joining. David, let me have the details. I'd be very interested in that. I would be really interested in that. I mean, actual fact, there you are. The London Health and Safety Group, over 80 years old and still going strong. I'm going to have a look at that because it is a bugbear of mine. It is a bugbear of mine. It is a bugbear of mine in terms of the people that are actually drinking and taking drugs. Obviously, they need some sort of guidance or counselling or rehab or whatever it might be. But my bigger concern is the fact that if you are, for example, you're a young dumper driver, and you turn up, you're 18, 19 years old, and you turn up and you're all enthusiastic, but the 40-year-old that's driving the excavator that's loading your machine is under the influence of drugs or alcohol. How easily could he just clout you? Never mind clouting the machine, you can buy a new dumper. You can't buy a new person. How easy it is for him to have that temporary lapse due to whatever's flowing around in his system. That's where my concern lies. Ken Hatch says, my Apple Watch tells me I've done 10,000 steps and I've not got out the machine. It's picking up me tracking. I like it. I do like that. I try to stand up every hour or so now, even for 30 seconds. It is advisable. I would say it's advisable. There is a lot of oil, sugar, and salt in everyday food. Big cause of obesity. Remove the oil and salt. Yeah. But I know I said this in jest about going to your average site canteen, for example, if you're on a big site and they've actually laid on a canteen, or alternatively, if you are you're working away, come mid-morning, you and the lads all pop down the local cafe. You pop down the local cafe, you're not ordering the endive salad, are you? Do you know what I mean? And listen, bearing in mind, as a diabetic myself, I travel up and down motorways. travel up and down motorways, it is dead easy to grab yourself a burger or a bacon roll. Not quite so easy to grab yourself something healthy. Really isn't. Chris Ford said silica dust is a problem in my job, crushing concrete all day. When it's damp, it sticks to your boots, then dries out in the cab. It's blown away by the aircon system. You can't see it, but it's there. Do you know one of the things that always makes me ponder that? And Hillhead is a prime example. So Hillhead, the dust suppression at Hillhead this year was phenomenal. They did a really, really good job. But there is crushing taking place, and there is dust in the air, particularly if you're round the edge, not at the main face, but round the side where all of the crusher manufacturers are stood. And I was there, taking photographs, filming, and everything else. Got back to our digs, had a shower, and I could see the dust coming off me. And then I sneezed again, blew my nose. I had dust up my nose, and I was laying in bed that night and I had a bit of a rake around in my ear, dust in my ears as well. That shit's getting in your system, people. It really is, and it will find all your nooks and crannies. Trust me. Gary Muirhead says, "Well said, Jim. Like you said, the high rate is set price. You say you buy a JCB X140 cost 100,000, Volvo EC140 cost 120k. The higher rate is still the same. Very true. Very true. Still think I'd go for the Volvo though, but that's just me. Dan Cullen would also be interested in the London Health and Safety Group, so I'm going to take a closer look at that. Jim Turner says, "Oh, now I'm having stood side by side with him, I wouldn't go so far as to say this. Obviously, I'm a fat bastard, he says, and I mostly sit on my arse all day. But I usually end up doing something manual and energetic at my place after work most evenings. So hopefully, I'm getting enough. I think that's exercise. Are you though? Are you actually getting any form of cardio exercise? And I realise that you are quite the tinkerer and stuff, but cardio. Are you actually, walking about? Are you running about? Are you actually getting your heart rate up? And you're probably not. You're probably not. Gary Muirhead says maybe we should have a league time for your friends on the show looking to lose a big weight. Give them encouragement. Maybe we could swap dieting tips. What, do the break fast show with Slimmer's World? Yeah, why not? Listen, I'm. If anybody would like to get on that, just as an aside, and I just to prove that I do pay attention, and I'm still trying to figure out how this works. There's an idea. This one's from Gary about the idea of doing Weight Watchers on the Breakfast Show, which I'd be more than happy to host. I'll do anything for a laugh and a chat. So yes, count me in on that. But Gary came up with an idea a couple of weeks ago, and it was Gary's idea, but funnily enough, it was inspired by Dan Cullen, and we've kept it between ourselves. But I'm going to throw it out there now. So I can't remember what it was, but Dan was basically saying he wanted a particular type of baseball cap, and he was willing to swap another one for it. And I can't remember the exact details, but imagine that. Imagine. Well, Gary did actually imagine that the Breakfast Show swap shop without Noel Edmonds. Anybody think that's a good idea? So imagine you have, let's say you've got two Caterpillar hats, both of which are identical, and you think I could lose one of these, but I'd really like to add a Liebherr hat to my collection. So you could post on this show, I've got a cat, I want to swap it for a Liebherr. And I'm doing it in hats, but if you've got anything else lying about the place that you think others might appreciate, the platform is yours. Do with it what you will. Dan Cullen says no. Oh, hang on a minute. Does that relate back? No, no. It's your wrist and heart movements that that's your step count. I often see my step count as 60k steps sitting in the cab. I bet. Jim, you're a well-built man, but you're not fat from what I've seen. No, I didn't think. I mean, he's a big lad, much bigger than me, but no, I wouldn't have described Jim as fat in any way, shape, or form. Very impressive beard, though. Very impressive beard. Looks like a lost member of ZZ Top, if you remember the band ZZ Top. So yeah, lots of ideas. to do here. You know, swap shops and league tables of excavators and stuff. If anybody's got any other ideas that they'd like to throw into the mix, then we can do that as well. Chris Hall says, Weight Watchers on the Breakfast Show. Now, there's a competition I could either win or come last in, depending how you interpret it. See, the good thing about things like that is, like, my wife always says the same. My wife goes to, I can't remember, Slimming World or whatever it's called. And she says that the guys tend to be at a major advantage because they tend to be that much bigger. So if she goes on a diet, a very strict diet, she might lose a pound or 2 pounds in a week. A big guy goes on a diet and he'll lose 10. And as a result, he ends up a slimmer of the week, basically for the rest of the time that he's there. But we could do that. We could make that happen. I mean, you'd all have to be very, very honest. And I, you know, I don't know how comfortable you'd be with doing sort of public weigh-ins, but you know, Dan Cullen says, yes, that'd be a great idea. That was for Andy Darvell. Yes, it was. I got a fantastic book off Gary Muirhead. See, the swaps are taking place, and I don't need to be involved. But you know, if anybody has got, you know, I don't know, somewhere here I've got half a dozen identical Komatsu hats. I don't actually know what I've done with them. But you know, if somebody wanted to swap those for a, not that I want to be involved, I've got enough bloody hats laying around the place as it is. But if you'd like to do that, you can do that. Garvin has just joined us actually here on YouTube. Had a long commute to one side of your long day in the seat, and it really is a poor lifestyle. Yeah. We were talking, and I've not seen him this morning, but Steve Williamson was on a job. I'm not entirely sure if he's still there, but he was on a job recently where he was basically working his allotted sort of 8, 9, 10 hours a day. But he had an hour and a half commute there and an hour and a half commute back. So he is doing the best part of 12 hours sat on his ass. Now, you know, our boy our boy Steve, is way, way younger than a lot of us. So he could probably get away with that. And, you know, he's a pretty slim fella. Looks like he looks after himself despite his love of spicy banana pizza. But that will catch up. That will catch up. Trust me. I for years believed that I was immune. I mean, I used to play a lot of football and squash and various other bits and pieces, and I was convinced I was immune to gaining weight. And I do remember as a 14 or 15-year-old actually trying to put on weight because I was quite skinny as a kid and stuff like that. And then I don't know, I got to about 30 and it was like, put on weight, not a problem. Yeah, you're a half a stone heavier this afternoon than you were this morning. No problem at all. And then shifting it is a bloody nightmare. I usually have a ton or so of rubble to offload and lay every evening, so hopefully that gets my heart rate up. Well, it's a good point. Chris Ford says, last time I got on some speaking scales, it said one at a time, please. Ah, yes, no coach parties. Hat swap, someone has a head start. Yes, Mr. Cullen. In actual fact, I think there are people in the world saying, we seem to be short of baseball caps. I wonder where they all went. They're all over in Watford, in Dan's place. David Jones says, London Health and Safety Group is currently on its summer break. June was the last meeting. Will resume on the 23rd of September. Thank you very much indeed for the link, David. I'm going to look that up. 23rd of September. Well, I was about to say bugger. I can't make it, and I can't make it. But I can't make it for a very good reason. We sat down last night and booked our tickets to Mine Expo. That's when I'm going. I'm in actual fact, we're going the day before that. We're going on the 22nd of September, and I'll be over there for a week. And a couple of things, but just given that that's come up, I didn't intend it, but that's where we are. Mine Expo is obviously going to be a big deal for content. You know, we're going to come back with some awesome footage of some amazing equipment. But having been to the last 3 Con Expos, I can tell you that my plans, like I did with Intermat, I would love to say, even though there's a time difference, love to say I could go to Con Expo, or Mine Expo rather, and broadcast live. Just not possible. The internet and Wi-Fi throughout Las Vegas is abysmal. If I tell you, I from here, even not on a wired connection, I can load a gigabyte of film. I can upload that in about, I don't know, 30 seconds, 40 seconds. Fred had to do the same from our hotel while we were in Vegas last time around. 7 hours. And that is no word of a lie. 7 hours. So there just isn't any broadband. There's no Wi-Fi connectivity as such. And crazy thing was, I actually said, I'll go to the reception of. We were staying at the Luxor Hotel. Went to the Luxor and said, your internet is incredibly slow. Is there, do you have a business unit? Is there somewhere I can go and pay for some faster Wi-Fi? And the guy said, we're on the same system as you are. There is nothing more. We went to the press office at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Terrible upload speeds there as well. So this is a long way of saying from the 22nd to the 29th, in actual fact the 30th, I won't be here, and I won't be online as such because I shall be in Las Vegas. What about a £1 a week aside to a charity for construction workers' families? It's a lovely idea, Dan, and I mean, obviously, there is the Lighthouse Club. That would be my suggestion. Put the money into the Lighthouse Club. I've had my reservations about the Lighthouse Club over the years, but they've done good work for people that I've known. So I would suggest that would be the way. But I do wonder if. Oh, excuse me. That tea is not sitting well. I do wonder if the demolition industry should do something like that. Because obviously the demolition industry is considerably smaller. It's about employs about 30,000 people as opposed to 3 million plus over on construction. So people like our friend Anne Mackay, who is genuinely struggling at the moment. Financially, she's struggling. Emotionally, she's struggling. She's just struggling. Almost 5 years after her husband was killed in absolutely horrendous circumstances. I do think that the demolition industry should have some kind of fund. And to be perfectly honest, as much as I appreciate Dan's idea and Dan's generosity and his kindness and everything else, in some ways, coming from the working man lets the employers off the hook. You think about the biggest demolition companies in the UK. They're turning over literally in the hundreds of millions of pounds. The Eris, the Keltbrays, the McGee's, and people like that. They're turning over the hundreds of millions of pounds. Would it really hurt them to bung 10 grand into a pot? There you go. That's our contribution for the year, just to give back a bit to the guys and the families of the guys that make us that money in the first place. We're always claiming the fact that it our people are our greatest asset. Prove it. Put your money where your mouth is. Gary Muirhead says a percentage of every project should go into a charity pot. Wouldn't that be nice? And it is possible to be sort of altruistic at the same time as you're being commercial. We've got companies that are working. I know of companies that are from down here. They go and work in Scotland, and part of their requirement is that they will employ local people. Those local people will require training. They'll require PPE and so on down the line. So they are investing in that. So the investment is taking the point. Is actually sort of taking place. Why not turn that into some sort of charitable fund? That's my point, Mark. Support these families that are struggling. So true companies do nothing towards the guys on the ground making their money. Yeah, and that's where if you think about the whole thing as a loop or a chain, that's the link that's missing. That's the bit of the circle that's missing. If you look after your staff will look after you. But I think it goes wider than that. Your staff also includes your staff's family. If somebody is injured or hurt and is unable to work on one of your sites, surely you have some kind of, if not legal, you have some kind of moral imperative to make sure that the family, the wife and the children, or the husband and the children, or whatever it might be, whatever mix of gender it is, that they have enough. I'm not saying, here's 100 grand, let's not mention this again. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about reaching out to them saying, look, while all this goes on, and we know we know from Didcot, 8.5 years, Redcar, nearly 5 years. We know how protracted these things are. Reach out and say, obviously, you've got rent to pay, you've got your mortgage to pay, you've got to put food on the table. What can we do? What can we do sensibly? And as I say, not here's a whacking great lump sum, not here's an admission of negligence or anything like that, but just reach out and say, obviously very, very upset about what's happened to your husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, aunt, uncle, whatever it might be. What is your situation? Okay, well, we'll take care of that for the next 6 months, 12 months, or whatever it might be. It's not hard. Dan Cullen says, David Jones, I'd be interested in joining. Where in London is it held? Where in London, indeed. Like we set up a pool and send you or an independent member. Is that the swap shop? Or is no, actually, no, in actual fact, I think he's talking about the idea of putting a fund together. Again, I mean, I'm not the best person to be running a charity, and as much as I'd like the idea of giving the money away, I don't much fancy the responsibility of actually having the money. I do think, I mean, I think if you're working in construction, I did for years. I mean, it was almost required. Nobody ever told me to support the Lighthouse charity when I was working on Contract Journal and Plant Managers Journal, but it was kind of implied if you're working in this industry, that's what you do. So I did for years. 20 odd years, I think I was contributing to the Lighthouse Club. Went away into PR, stopped doing it, and when I came back, wasn't entirely comfortable with some of the stuff, the investments that the Lighthouse Club was making, and the way that they were using members' money. So I took a bit of a step back, but it does do some fantastic work. It really does. So if you do have a quid spare, Lighthouse Club is not a bad place to invest it. It really isn't. Had a couple of things on LinkedIn. What is that all about? Is that anything related to what we're talking about here? Marco Lorini is actually watching over on LinkedIn. Morning, Marco. Or ciao, Marco. Good to see him here. One of my heroes of the industry. Let's have a look. Gary Muirhead says, surely the HR departments of these companies could also take care of the families, poor souls, not just their own company employees. You would, wouldn't you? Here's an interesting thing. DeHarco over in Holland have just joined us. I wish you'd been here yesterday, DeHarco, because I was wearing one of your hats. Just to prove it, I've still got it readily to hand. There you go. There's my DeHarco hat. I was wearing that on the show yesterday. You've arrived for the Wacker hat, but good to see you here. Yes, and Gary Muirhead says, good morning. Good morning and ciao to Marco Lorini. Yeah. You kind of would, wouldn't you? You kind of would. If you think about it, I always try and boil things down to individual people rather than companies or organizations or governments or whatever. If I'll come back to Dr. Yvonne Waterman in just a moment, but just thinking this through. So imagine you listen to me twaddle on for another half an hour, and then you decide to go and jump in your car, and you back your car off the drive, and you back straight into one of your next door neighbours' cars, and you give him whiplash or her whiplash. Now, your insurance company will ultimately pay out, and they somewhere along the line, somebody will decide, yes, you were responsible, the other person was responsible. But what if that person that you've just ploughed into is kind of an older guy, right? So he's laid up with his whiplash, and his wife is getting a bit concerned about the fact that the grass in her front garden is getting a bit long, and she's a bit too doddery to take care of it. You'd pop round with a lawnmower, wouldn't you? Because that's the decent thing to do. And by doing so, you're not saying, I admit full responsibility for that accident, even if it wasn't your fault. You're not doing that. You're just saying, he can't do it. I was involved in the accident, therefore I'll do it. Well, is that not the good thing to do? London Health and Safety Group meet at Miss Sean Derea lavish offices at Africa House in Holborn. Oh, like me a lavish office. Like me a lavish office, yes, please. But he also says there's a Weatherspoons next door where we just go out for a chill and out in a great network. I'm looking forward to doing that. If you said it's monthly, maybe I'll get along in October. That would be fantastic. Mr. Larini says, when you take him out to take another video of the jumbo in operation, we need more jumbo vids. Funny you should say that. Funny you should say that. I'm in conversation, not actually with Marco, because obviously the machine is now owned by Despe. But yes, there are plans afoot to revisit the jumbo. Trust me, there is. Now I'm going to go back to Dr. Yvonne Waterman. Good morning, Yvonne. Good morning, Doctor. Should I say? Yeah, that's better. Are you interested in attending any events this year? Any tips? Not sure about tips, but I'm always interested in attending events. The one drawback of this job, the great thing about this job, let's balance this. The great thing about this job is that I get to talk at a lot of people. The downside of this job is I don't get enough time to have people chat at me. So events, conferences, exhibitions, love them because it's an opportunity to widen my knowledge base to get more insight. I mean, there is a very real concern thinking about it as a journalist rather than as a live streamer. It's very easy to get locked into your own way of thinking. To basically start to talk yourself into a circle. I believe this, and then you reinforce it by saying it to other people, and then other people agree, which reinforces it. And you never really get the opportunity to take a step back and go, huh, I hadn't thought of that. That's exactly what events do. Just thinking, Mark, when you're available, you would make a great speaker at one of the meetings too. Good Lord. I've gone from popping my head round the door to being a speaker. David, yes. Yeah, I'd love to do it. Love to do it. Any opportunity to stand up and chat to people. One of the things that I regret not having done quite yet is actually doing. Obviously, we're broadcasting this live, but actually doing a live show. Taking this out into public and setting up shop somewhere, and even if only half a dozen people turn up, but to actually sit down and talk to people that are actually making the industry work, at whatever level. So whether that's working guys like yourselves, if it's people in power, people in authority levels, I love to be able to just sit down and do this and actually. We have lots and lots of interaction, and speaking of interaction, the level of engagement on this show now is just blowing me away because every single day we get lots of questions, lots of feedback, and everything else. But the ability to actually do that, literally like a round table. Imagine a round table as David has described. Pop down to Weatherspoons, a bunch of us, and just sit there and chew the fat like you would with the lads on site. I would love to do that. Dan Cullen says, Dr. Yvonne Waterman, what events are you talking about? Yeah, what events are you talking about, Dr. Waterman? Jim Turner says, morning, Marco. Peter McKenna's just joined us. Good morning, Peter. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Hope you're fitting well, my friend. Gary Muirhead says, Marco Larini, the guy is an absolute genius, creates some amazing equipment, fantastic working environment for his staff. It'd be a dream to work for such a wonderful company. Yeah. I've got quite a big bucket list, despite the fact that I've done a lot. I've got quite a big bucket list of things I'd like to see, people I'd like to see, people I'd like to meet and stuff. And I have to say, as it stands at the moment, very tippity top of my bucket list is literally sitting down, just basically set a camera rolling and just chat to Marco Larini. I admire lots and lots of people in this business, but he above most because he just. I described him as the Willy Wonka of the industry, and I stand by that. But there's also a bit of me that thinks he's like an Eddie Izzard or a Billy Connolly. The world is here, and Marco's just over here. He's looking at it in a different way, and I just have so much admiration for the guy. Ken Hatcher is off to Tool Station and then off to the Mint. Peter McKenna says, "You look like an American rapper, Mark." Is that a good thing? Is that a good thing? Not sure it is. I am cultivating the look though. I hope people have noticed. I have taken a bit of a decision. The hats have changed. I mean, I still love my old standby, and I will be wearing that again in the very near future. But I quite like these kind of high fronted things. Kind of sets off the beard quite nicely. Wife hates it obviously because she hates the beard. Quite possibly hates me as well. I don't think that's the case. We've been talking for an hour, people. I think that's probably enough. Although LinkedIn has just popped up something. What is it saying over here? Oh, actually, that's the message from David Jones. Just thinking about when you're available, you make a great speaker at one of the meetings too. I'd love to do it. Love to do it. Any excuse to stand up and spout forth, which, as you've probably gathered by now, I do quite a bit. That's an hour. Well, it's not actually. It's 55 minutes. Anybody got any more that they would like to discuss? David Jones again, making the industry work is a great phrase. Incidentally, I've been appointed chair of the CLC London South and East region, setting up a relaunch in October as a conduit with new government. Watch the media for announcements from CLC HQ. You heard it here first. You heard it here first, people. Peter McKenna says, bye all. Sorry I missed, but I need to go for breakfast with an old friend. That is how you're supposed to spend your Saturday morning, not listening to this old twaddle. Dan Cullen says, have a wonderful weekend, guys. Stay safe. Look forward to seeing you all on Monday. Jim Turner says, here's an idea that I'd like to do if I'm ever rich enough. And a model that businesses could easily do. Take a percentage of company profits and invest in buy-to-lets. Take the end-of-year rental profits and give it to charity. Then taking the equity of the properties over the years and reinvest, all the while putting the profits into charitable contributions. They're only giving the profits away. Admirable, admirable, admirable. The problem is, does anyone remember when Google first started? They had, I don't even know if you describe it as a slogan, but Google's ethos was "Don't do evil" or "Don't be evil." And yeah, you kind of think, well, they got to a certain size and went, sod it, let's be evil. You know, when Amazon first started, I remember thinking, this is fantastic. I've got access to pretty much any book or any bit of music I ever could want, and it's there. I don't have to go and park in my local shopping centre to go to Waterstones to be told, oh, that's out of stock or whatever. I thought that was fantastic. Jeff Bezos now, bit of a Bond villain. I remember the first time I saw a Tesla car, and I thought, well, this is marvelous. And then Elon Musk decided to give away the battery technology, and I thought, what an absolute legend, this guy. I mean, Elon Musk for president of the world. Turns out, bit of a Nazi. I think Jim's idea is absolutely fantastic. Just can't see companies doing it somehow. I don't believe we've talked for an hour and not mentioned tits. Well said, Jim. Great session, Mark says. David Jones. Great session, Mark. Well done. Thank you very much indeed. Dan Cullen. Do you mean tits, Chris Ford? Yep, it's all tits up, mate. Maybe we should just have that running across the bottom of the screen. Maybe we get there sooner or later. Maybe we should do that. See, this is why I don't get invited to be a guest speaker, because people think I might actually turn up and just say that. I wouldn't, I promise. It's all from the audience. Right, people, that is an hour. Go and have your Saturday, would you? Thank you very much indeed for being here. Really appreciated your company. Did we set the world to rights? Probably not. Is the world a better place for having done this? Probably not. Did we have a good time? Yeah, of course we did. Of course we did. David Jones says hydrogen might be better than lithium-ion batteries. I don't think there's any question about might. I think it most certainly is. The only problem is we don't know how much it's going to cost. We don't know where we're going to get it, and we don't know when we're going to get it. Bit of a problem. Dan Cullen says, David Jones, give me a shout. I will put the two of you in contact. I've got details for both of you. I'll put the pair of you in contact, and you do your thing. And David Jones says, yeah, indeed. Yeah, indeed. People, be off with you. Go and have a fantastic Saturday. Have a good Sunday as well. I was going to say, come on, England, but if there's any justice in the world, Spain will win. So I'm not going to go on to that. But I will see you again on Monday morning. Bright eyed, bushy tailed. I shall be as sober as a judge with a clear head and no hangover because I'm not a drinker. There you are. What a self righteous twat. Dan says, I'm relaxing and chilled. Go back to that, Dan. I'll see you all on Monday. All the very best.